Let me introduce today's speaker, Dr. Chai Eitan Cohen Yanarodjak. He is the Turkey analyst at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, JISS, and the Moshe Dayan Center for Middle Eastern and African Studies at the Tel Aviv University. He received his doctorate from Tel Aviv University School of History, and he is a lecturer at the same institution and at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. He's also the editor of Turkeyscope, Insights on Turkish Affairs. In a very timely manner, Israel and Turkey announced last week full normalizations of their relations. And in the same time, in the bigger picture, Turkey's situated in between Europe and Asia. And Erdogan continues to navigate through a very complex geopolitical environment, from the recent summit in Tehran with Putin and Raisi, to the Syrian civil war, to successive refugee crises, and obviously the big elephant in the room, Russia's war in Ukraine and Turkey's involvement with it. So we have a lot to deconstruct, but Eitan, let's dive right in and start with the obvious, the most recent event, which is the normalization of Turkey and Israel's relation. Mm-hmm. How do you see this? Is this relatable to the Abraham Accords context or environment, or how do you see this?
Okay, first of all, allow me to thank you very much for inviting me and having me in such a distinguished forum. It's a privilege and pleasure for me to be here with you tonight. Briefly, I can, in a nutshell, I can analyze this, I can put this way. As we all know, the president of Turkey, Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, he has a very known Islamist tendency. Once he got rid of the Turkish army as an important checks and balance, or let me say as an opponent for his own ultimate power, he basically began to implement his real agenda in the Turkish foreign policy. And as a result, we began to see a very pro-Muslim Brotherhood oriented foreign policy, where Turkey adopted a foreign policy doctrine called the precious loneliness. As a result of this worldview, Turkey downgraded its relations in an intentional way with Syria, with Egypt, and with the state of Israel, claiming that these three states are acting in an immoral way. And since he saw himself accountable for the future generations in Turkey, so he said that he is ready to sacrifice Turkey's immediate interests for the sake of this moral Islamic worldview. But of course, when Turkey adopted this foreign policy, the Turkish economy could be considered as a strong one, or let me say, if not deteriorating one. Their economic score was fine. But within the years, we began to see that the instability in the Turkish economy, which resulted in the devaluation of the Turkish lira, which weakened the Turkish economy significantly. Many people began not to invest in Turkey. The foreign investment began to escape from Turkey due to unpredictable incidents like the failed coup attempt or the arbitrary practices that we all observed in the Turkish judiciary, etc. And as a result, the Turkish economy suffered, and even today suffers from a very severe devaluation. So I would like to put this as a very important factor that will bring a U-turn in the Turkish foreign policy. But not only that, we also happen to see another important groundbreaking event in the Middle East, which is called the Abraham Accords. You may remember when the Abraham Accords were first declared, Turkey criticized the existence of these records, and they even condemned the United Arab Emirates in an ironic way, because Turkey enjoys from full diplomatic relations with Israel since 1949. But despite that, we happen to see that Turkey criticized the Emirates for having proper relationship with the state of Israel. In this regard, the Turkish administration, in my opinion, of course, I'm talking now with the wisdom of retrospect, I can say, that they thought that the Abraham Accords will not survive after the departure of Donald Trump from the White House. But the thing is, we happen to see the exact opposite. Instead of the collapse of the Abraham Accords, some other states like Sudan and Morocco, they also began to be part of this Abraham Accords. And as a result, we even happen to see the face of the new Middle East in a very extraordinary manner in a new summit, which is called the Negev Summit in Israel, where the Egyptian, Moroccan, Bahraini, Emirati, American, and Israeli foreign ministers came together and they demonstrated, we can say they demonstrated power, and they underlined and highlighted the face of the new Middle East. And from then on, we can understand that the Turks understood that Abraham Accords is here to stay. Plus, they also came to the conclusion that the fact that Israel is not a lonely state anymore, and Israel has also new friends, also in the Eastern Mediterranean. We can speak about the Republic of Cyprus and Greece as two important other states that Israel formed an alliance with them. And very ironic, but the core architect for this trilateral alliance is no other state but Turkey. Turkey, with its own hands, pushed Israel into the arms of the Cypriots and the Greeks. And as a result, we happen to see this harmonic and great relationship between these three countries. So when you're looking from Turkey towards Israel, you're seeing that once upon a time, this lonely, isolated villa in the jungle, as we say, as we call ourselves in Israel, this country is not a lonely planet anymore. And on contrary, many countries are trying to engage with Israel and would like to make business and diplomacy with the Jewish state. And as a result, what we are seeing today is, given the fact that Israel, United Arab Emirates, and behind the scenes, Saudi Arabia is masterminding this new vision of the Middle East. So Turkey wanted to put an end to its so-called precious loneliness. Okay, and of course, from Turkey's perspective, the most important issue, besides to put an end to Turkey's growing isolation, which was self-imposed isolation. Secondly, Turkey wanted to receive hot money to its deteriorating economy. And we all know that the Emiratis and the Saudis can provide such generous investments to the fragile Turkish economy. And as a result, last November, the current president of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, visited Ankara, and there he ushered $10 billion of investment to the Turkish economy. Of course, Mr. bin Zayed did not make such a declaration for the beautiful eyes of the Turkish president, but indeed he bought the tendency of the Turkish foreign policy. And right after that historic summit, we began to see a very crucial U-turn in the Turkish foreign policy. Turkey began to launch its charm offensive vis-a-vis Israel, vis-a-vis Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and began to mend her fences one after the other with all of these countries. But it had a miscalculation. It had a prejudice that all of these states will be ready to normalize their relations with Turkey at all costs, at the rhythm of Turkey at once, okay? But what we have seen is Egypt would like to see tangible results to get rid of the Muslim Brotherhood elements inside Turkey. Israel wanted similar achievements vis-a-vis the Hamas presence inside Turkey. And recently, maybe we are all aware of it, that the recent reconciliation agreement between Israel and Turkey also delivered the aviation agreement between the two states that at last, since 2007, the Israeli aviation companies, El Al, Yisrael, and Arkia, they could not fly to Turkey because of the security regulations in Turkey that no other security guards can carry weapons at the airport terminals in Turkey. So they are now changing it in favor of the Israeli demands. So long story short, we are seeing that the current reconciliation with Israel is a part of a larger Turkish strategy of mending fences with the all different Middle Eastern states. Recently, maybe you are aware of it, or maybe you are not. Turkey even declared its desire to normalize her relations with Damascus, with the Assad regime, and asked to function as a mediator between the Assad regime and the Syrian opposition, which is supported by Ankara. So we are seeing a huge U-turn, and in my opinion, the most important drive of this U-turn is to attract the foreign investment before the June 2023 elections, because it's very crucial. We may recall that the most important success of Mr. Erdogan was bringing the prosperity to the Turkish economy. That's why he became a rock star, let me say, in Turkey, right? But now, even if the fact that the Turkish economy is deteriorating, so many people who became very rich thanks to him, so they are still providing him a credit for those golden age days. So that is why many Turkish citizens are still supporting Erdogan. So the thing is, tomorrow, if the Turkish economy will be prosperous again, we may see another deteriorating Israeli-Turkish relations. In my opinion, the current normalization is not a genuine one. Is very fragile. The existence of Hamas inside Turkey is still there. We could not eliminate this potential threat to the relations. This is a huge problem for Israel, even if for now we decided to live with this challenge. And given the fact that this current normalization occurred so fast, is also giving us the impression the exact opposite can be an option for the Turks. So long story short, I'm very happy that we are marching towards reconciliation, towards mending fences with Ankara, because at the end of the day, we have to underline that Turkey is a very important regional power, and Israel has no intention of turning this powerful country into an adversary or an enemy. We have to think, more complex, and even we have to think the Turkey after Erdogan, and we have to do our best to remain friendly to this country. So as long as they would like to shake our hand, so let's shake that hand, but with open eyes, to be very skeptical, but we have to be respectful, but let the other side to understand and internalize that we are very much alert, and we would like to believe to the other side, but it would be very much dependent on them to launch more grandiose projects for the future. So in a nutshell, this is the current reconciliation.
Very simple. The situation is not complex at all. So let's deconstruct, like you said, in a very pragmatic way. Nothing is as beautiful as it seems. And so I suggest let's take it from east to west.
As you wish.
Quite recently, there was a summit in Tehran. So as much as Erdogan, as you said, has normalized relations with us, he just met with Putin and Raisi, and so the relations between Iran and Turkey are also now in a different context, and his situation with Russia as well. And in the same context, we have his, like you said, his position in Syria. But isn't his objective and position regarding Israel and normalization, we have the same sort of objectives in Syria, and it will take him away from Iran?
Okay, so let me answer this question in this way. The summit in Iran should not be seen as an extraordinary summit between the three leaders. These meetings, these summits are called the Astana summits. They are basically designed to put an end to the ongoing fighting in the Syrian civil war. While the Russians and the Iranians are coming from one side, the Turkish government is representing the opposition forces from the other side. So this was a pre-scheduled meeting between, first of all, between the Iranians and the Turks, and the Russians basically, they took part. And the thing is, the timing of the summit was also very crucial. Maybe you may remember, but almost 2 months ago, Iran was accused both by Israel and Turkey for trying to conduct terrorist attacks against ordinary Turkish citizens who were visiting Turkey. So the Turkish intelligence agency conducted a counter-espionage operation. And thank God that they were successful thanks to the assistance of the Israeli intelligence agency. And at last, they foiled all of these terror plots. And for Erdogan, it was a great timing because he went to Tehran with something very tangible in his hands. If we are playing a chess, and you know where the game chess was invented, it was invented in Iran. So he went there and he said, check. You know, that's a great thing because the two sides are in a great rivalry, especially in Syria. Let me provide you an angle here. Turkey, since 2016, is existent in Syria as an occupying force. They conducted 3 different military operations in 2016, 18, and if I'm not mistaken, 20. There are 3 different portions in northern Syria that they are all occupied by Turks, and these operations were conducted against the Kurdish organization called the PYD. In Turkish eyes, the PYD, YPG, the military wing, is the continuation of the PKK on the other side of the border. So in their eyes, it's a terrorist organization. And when they are fighting with the Kurdish entities, there are also some Shiite towns in northern Syria that nowadays the Turkish government is willing to launch an additional operation in Manbij and Tel Rifat enclaves in northern Syria. And in that particular cantons, especially in Tel Rifat, there are 2 important Shiite towns called Az-Zahara and Nubul. From the Iranian perspective, from the Shiite perspective, if Turks and the moderate so-called Syrian opposition will get into that territory, it means that it will be a Sunnification of the Shiite northern Syrian Aleppo region. So it's something very much complex. So they are trying to persuade Turkey not to launch this operation.
And how does it affect Israel's relations with Turkey then? Because Israel is also very implicated in Syria.
Yes, but the thing is, Israel is much more focused in southern Syria, which is, I mean, if we are talking about, you know, we have the Israeli Golan Heights, and we have the bordering area of the Syrian Golan and the Damascus area. This is the main Israeli concern. Israel does not want to see any Iranian or Shiite existence, reinforcements of the Revolutionary Guards in this section. But Turks, on contrary to Israelis, are only focusing against the Kurds in the northern Syria. So we cannot say that our interests are overlapping. I mean, we cannot say that that we are in a clash of interests. We cannot say such a thing, but they do not have to, they don't feel the necessity to support us in the south, and we do not feel any necessity to support them in the north. So we are not touching, I mean, if we are talking about in math terminology, there are two sets, but these sets are not intersecting to each other.
Right.
Not intersecting.
Yeah,
so in this regard, we can only say that in a traditional way, Turkey may want to weaken Iran because it sees Iran as a rival force, but it does not see the Iranian existence in northern Syria as an existential threat for its own national security.
Right.
And I would like to come to that also to Russia, because Russia is also taking part in these talks. And what we are seeing is, after the latest summit in Sochi, Erdogan was miraculously persuaded by Putin that he should launch new peace talks or reconciliation or normalization, as we love to say in Turkish, right, with the Assad regime. Let me remind you, Assad regime is the bitter enemy of Erdogan for more than a decade. They are doing their best to delegitimize the Bashar Assad regime at all costs. And now Erdogan is talking the exact opposite. So we can ask the question, why? Because of the war on Ukraine, Turkey needs that wheat corridor.
So wait, again, so let's recalibrate that and move a little bit.
One more sentence. I don't want to. I promise you to stop here. I just don't want to say this sentence. Today we have a very high cost of living in Turkey. The prices of the wheat and the basic consumption goods are rising on daily basis. We have elections in Turkey. So he needs to bring these prices down at all costs. So he needs to please Vladimir Putin. And if you like Vladimir Putin not to bomb Odessa, as he did the day after of the so-called the Odessa corridor to Turkey, you know, that there was this agreement ceremony the day after Putin bombed Odessa. So if you don't want to see such a thing, then you have to satisfy the needs of Vladimir Putin, which is pushing you towards the arms of Bashar al-Assad.
Right. So yeah, again, as you said, there's two levels to it. There's foreign policy, and there's also the interior issue within Turkey. And one of the main things that Erdogan have said, and we've seen a lot of reports about it, is the energy issue, like you mentioned, and the East Med and the different, obviously, U.S. administration that we now have. So one of the things is that the East Med with the Erdogan does not necessarily include it before, and then it was supposed to be with Greece, Israel, Egypt. Everything is still in the prospects and not yet functionable. But one of the things that were suggested is that maybe the normalization with Israel is for Israel to be a mediator within the area of the East Med, and maybe created some sort of alliance between Egypt and Turkey, well, to get them closer and create some energy platform towards Europe through Turkey.
Okay. First of all, I would like to underline that Israeli-Turkish relations are not in a shape that Israel can play the role of a mediator between Greece, Cyprus, or Egypt. First of all, Turkey should do its best to mend her fences with the Egyptians, first of all. And then, as we all know, because of the Turkish military intervention / invasion, according to whom you're going to ask, in Cyprus in 1974, Turkey still does not recognize the Republic of Cyprus, which is a legitimate state and a member of European Union. So,
to which Israel yesterday announced selling Iron Dome
yes.
batteries.
So as you can see that there is an ambivalent relationship. Turkey is not withdrawing from its position vis-a-vis Hamas, and we are still seeing Hamas's offices inside Turkey. And at the same time, we also hear from the news that the Israelis are selling the Iron Dome systems to the Republic of Cyprus. So we cannot speak about a painless normalization between Israel and Turkey. I mean, both of the countries are not satisfying each other 100%, okay? And there are complexities. The thing is, the EastMed on paper, it's very good. I mean, it's taking Israel, Cyprus, Greece, Italy together. The worldviews of these countries are very similar. We have the same culture, civilization, Judeo-Christian culture. We have a friendship, a built-in friendship with these four states, but we have a problem. The problem is the depth of the Mediterranean Sea. I'm not an engineer, but if I'm not mistaken, many engineers are questioning the feasibility of the EastMed pipeline because of the depth of the Eastern Mediterranean. Especially, I'm talking about the area between Republic of Cyprus and the Greek island of Crete. And besides that, we also have another important headache. Since Turkey does not recognize Cyprus, and since Turkey is not a signatory of the United Nations Convention Law of the Seas, which is recognizing every island's right to declare 12 miles of territorial waters, Turkey does not recognize the exclusive economic zone of Greece and Cyprus, and it declared its own exclusive economic zone, and it even signed a bilateral agreement with the government of National Accord of Libya and basically what they did was they cut the geographical contiguity between Republic of Cyprus and Greece. So when we are trying to implement this project, we also have to interfere in the Greek, Cypriot, and Turkish problems. So Israel does not want to get involved into that. So the second option is the Israeli pipeline can go through Turkey, but then we have another problem. Unfortunately, given the ups and downs in the Israeli-Turkish relations, we still do not have this mutual trust between us and our Turkish friends. And we are looking at this normalization as a very fragile one. And as a result, the decision makers in Jerusalem are very reluctant to launch this grandiose project with Turkey because of our inability. We cannot predict how will Turkey will react in the very near future.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is another issue. So Israel's best options for now is using this EastMed as a fig leaf to conduct better relations, to make more rapprochement with Republic of Cyprus and Greece, and at the same time, in the meantime, to sell our natural gas to the Egyptians, to the Jordanians, and if it's possible, to the Arab world, and maybe to turn this gas into a liquefied gas and to transfer it to Europe via tankers. Okay, and that is why I do not think that one of the most important objectives of this reconciliation between Turkey and Israel from the Turkish point of view, of course, is to conduct an energy grandiose project with Israel at the expense of Republic of Cyprus and Greece. Let me tell you very frankly, Israel will not going to sacrifice her strategic relations with Cyprus and Greece for a fragile normalization with Turkey.
Understood.
Let me give you a very concrete example. The Greek Cypriots are providing the Israeli Defense Forces room for conducting a military drill in the Troodos Mountains, which is a very mountainous area, and the topography of Cyprus is very similar to southern Lebanon. So for Israel, it's crucial to conduct military drills in that terrain. Besides that, the Greeks providing and opening their airspace for the Israeli air forces so that we can conduct our military drills there. So let's think in business manners, okay? If you want me to stop doing business with Cyprus and Turkey, as Cyprus and Greece, you have to give me something more and more attractive that Greece and Cyprus are not ready to provide me. Let's think out loud. Can you think that the Israeli commando can conduct military drills in the Black Sea Mountains in Turkey? I don't think so. Do you think that Israeli air forces can conduct air drills in central Anatolia as they did in the 1990s? I don't think so. So from the Israeli point of view, our relationship with Greece and Cyprus should remain. But it's also another message to our Cypriot and Greek friends. The fact that we have our great relations with them, it should not come at the expense of Turkey. Like, as we are not pressuring them not to have relations with Israel's adversaries, they do not have any luxury to pressure us not to have proper relations with Turkey.
As you said, it's a very, very complicated jungle, our region. So now to the elephant in the room, I suppose. There is a war going on in Europe, and Turkey is also involved. And as you said, there was a wheat agreement that Turkey is now the guarantor of it, even though Turkey sells drones to Ukraine that are fighting against the Russians. And Turkey ended up by agreeing to Finland and Sweden joining NATO. How does it put, again, the relations with Israel or even Turkey with Europe? What's the Europe's take on Turkey changing all its policy and also Putin agreeing to let Turkey be the guarantor of something that they're not necessarily for?
Okay, so let me put this in this way. Before the war, the membership in NATO was not a great compliment in Turkey. But after the war, Turkey all of a sudden understood and internalized that being a NATO member is a good thing, okay? So they think that now they are blessed with NATO, and it's not only for Turkey, I assume, it's also for other NATO countries that after the war, they really understood the importance of this alliance for their own national security. In Turkish eyes, if we are talking about states, the states, they do not have a short memory. Instead, they have a very long historical memory. As the successor state of the Ottoman Empire, Turkey cannot disconnect from Ottoman Empire defeats vis-a-vis Russians. The two states fought 14 times, and the Ottomans were defeated 14 times, okay? I mean, I'm talking about the major wars. I'm not talking about little battles, okay? I'm talking about the major wars. So in the eyes of the Turks, the only country that can pose an existential threat to the Turkey's sovereignty is no other state than Russia, historically speaking. Do you think that the Greeks or Cypriots or Armenians will invade Turkey? I don't think so. Demographically, it's a mission impossible. Okay. The Iranians and Turks are not fighting against each other in a conventional war since 1639.
So they are dependent on Russians' good relations.
Can you imagine? Do you hear me? 1639, they are not fighting against each other. So the only state that can pose such a danger is Russia. That is why Turkey now is finding itself in between, because prior to the war, Turkey also began to conduct a rapprochement towards Russia. It bought the S-400 anti-ballistic systems. And I guess the ones who are familiar with the S-400s will know that it's not an ordinary purchase. If you're purchasing such a system, it's a strategic choice that you are mapping yourself with a certain camp. But we have a problem, because Turkey is also a member of NATO. And that is why the United States got the decision to eliminate Turkey, to take out Turkey from its joint strike fighter project, the F-35. And in addition to that, the United States imposed tangible sanctions against the Turkish military industry. Okay, these are called the Kaatsa sanctions. Right. Turkey is in between Russia and the United States and the West. And nowadays, while providing the Ukrainians the Bayraktar UAVs so that they can kill as much Russians as they can, at the same time, Turkey is trying to please Vladimir Putin by hosting the oligarchs who are running away from Russia, and Turkey became the harbor of the Russian money. Why? Because of the fragile Turkish economy once again. So recently the Americans warned Turkey. I don't know how will Turkey react to that, but it's again a huge question. Turkey needs Russia for the wheat corridor. Turkey needs Russia for the tourism. The vast majority of the tourists are coming to Turkey. Approximately 20% of them are coming from Russia.
Yeah.
So given the fact that the Turkish economy is a deteriorating situation, if Russia will close the doors, so what will happen to the Turkish economy? It will be a disaster.